So Martela was one of the key persons behind Nokia's success because he was the president of the Nokia mobile phone department during the time when Nokia rose to become the world's biggest mobile phone producer. And then before the Nokia's downfall, he had already moved on to become the CEO of Kone, one of the world's biggest elevator companies. And during his tenure as a CEO, the company market value rose from 3.5 billion to 22 billion. And when I asked from Matti, what is his leadership philosophy, he distilled it to very simple things. Now, set the direction and then work very, very hard to get everybody engaged. So make sure that there's a clear direction, and after that, make sure that everybody is actually pursuing that direction. And that sounds quite simple, and that's kind of what this Nordic minimalist leadership is about. But sometimes it seems to be quite hard to put into practice. So often the leaders have a bit too much overconfidence about their own skills, and because of that, they take too much control, make too many decisions, not giving employees enough space to pursue the shared goal by themselves. I guess latest reincarnation of this is the founder mode that is right now very fashionable in the Silicon Valley tech pro circles, where they are patting each other in the back and saying that we are also excellent that we should micromanage every decision. And to that, I'm kind of saying that leadership is not about you succeeding, but actually about the whole team succeeding. So it's not about just what you are doing in the company, how successful you are, but in a leadership position, your task is to make sure that everybody in the company is succeeding, and through that, we get more done than when it's only the leader who does the decision. So I'm Frank Martela, and I'm assistant professor here at Aalto University, and I do work on the topics of motivation, well-being, engagement, and lately, also more and more on this Nordic minimalist leadership, which I see is this leadership style where the leader tries to minimize their own power in order to maximize the shared impact. And why do I call it minimalist leadership? I basically have two inspirations for that. One of them was Ilkka Paananen, who was and is the CEO of Supercell, this Finnish mobile game company, which is probably one of the most successful mobile game companies in the world, having these titles like Clash of Clans, Clash Royale, Heyday, and so forth, which all have crossed more than $1 billion worldwide. And if you don't know the game, ask your children. They probably already play one or two of these games. And Ilkka Paananen, when asked about his leadership, he's in many interviews said that his task is and his goal is to become the world's least powerful CEO. What he means by this is that his task is to recruit the best talent, give them very ambitious goals, and after that, step away and give them room to make decisions themselves so that they can build the best possible games for the company. So in a way, the more the people are able to independently pursue the shared goals, the better he has succeeded at his task as a leader. So paradoxically, the less the people need him, the better he has succeeded in his task. Another inspiration for this minimalist leadership is this study by Adam Grant, where he was looking at 57 franchises of this US national pizza company, and he wanted to know whether extroverted or introverted leaders were better at making the franchises profitable. And what he first found out that in the cases where employee proactivity was low, where the employees didn't show too much initiative, in those cases, the extroverted leaders had the advantage. So by stepping in, by taking a role, but speaking up, they were able to get more out of the employees. But at the same time, when the employee proactivity was high, when the employees showed more initiative, had more motivation to do things themselves, suddenly the more extroverted leaders were at the disadvantage. Suddenly the more introverted leaders were able to get better performance because they were more open to actually step back and give more room for the employees to individually pursue the goals that they had there. And highest profits were found when proactive employees were combined with these more or less extroverted leaders. So sometimes the leaders can accomplish more when they actually themselves do less. And I guess this goes back to this the assumptions that leaders have about how to get most out of employees. So the classic way of thinking about this is this so-called command and control model, where the leader thinks that, okay, I tell people what to do, and then I make sure that and monitor that everybody does exactly what I ask them to do. And here the assumption is that the leader is the one who knows best, and because of that, leader is the brain, and everybody else is the hands who just execute the orders of the leader. Another mode of thinking about how to get most out of employees is so-called inspire and serve model. So here the leader's task is more to inspire people to go towards the shared direction, and after that support and serve the people to make sure that they have enough resources, enough knowledge, enough skills to go towards this shared direction. And of course, this is the second one, is the one I'm going to be talking about today. And in researching topic, I've like distilled this minimalist leadership into 4 steps. So let's go through them one by one. First step, as mentioned, is this direction. So make sure that there's a clear direction for your organization and make sure that everybody knows what that direction is. So clarity of the direction is very important. And a classic example here will be John F. Kennedy, who held this speech in 1961 about wanting to take man to the moon and back safely by the end of that current decade. And that energized people at the NASA organization because they now they had like this crystal clear mission, and after that they were actually able to accomplish this very bold mission during that decade. But besides clarity, it's also important to make sure that the direction is motivating. Because even though people would know the direction, if they're not motivated by that, it doesn't help too much. And as regards motivation, one thing that you have to think about is like the what of the direction. So some goals are more motivating than others. So making more profit for the stock owners might not animate the employees too much. But if you're able to say that together we are like serving certain human beings, or we are creating great products to the market that actually make people's lives better, all of these are goals that are actually more motivating for the employees. Another way to motivate the employees is to engage them in the process of thinking about this direction. So this more participatory strategy making and decision making is something that through which the employees feel that their voice is heard in the process, and through that they're also more committed to the shared direction when they feel that they have been part of shaping that direction. After direction, the next thing is ownership. So actually giving people more power, more autonomy to make decisions themselves. Tuomas Syrjänen was the CEO of one of the founders of Futurice, this Finnish IT company, and he thought that when the company started to grow, also the line behind his door started to grow. So people came to ask from him like help in various decision making, and then Tuomas felt that, okay, let's do this, let's do that. Then at one point he realized that this is not a sustainable model because like there's that it's too much pressure on him, and too little, and he has like too little time to think about actual strategy level issues because he's all the time solving these various issues that the employees have. So instead, he decided that next time people come to ask for advice, he doesn't tell what he himself would do in the situation. Instead, he only tells how would he himself think about the situation. So when people came with the question, he said that in your position, I would probably think about these and these issues, then I would probably look at these and these numbers, I might call this and this person to ask their advice, and after that I would make the decision. And then he said to the people that, okay, now you know how I would make the decision, now go out and make the decision, and I will support you whatever you decide to do. Helping people to learn to make decisions in the same way the CEO would make the decisions, what he was trying to accomplish there. Another thing which is important about this, when you give people more power, you also have to give them more information. Because sometimes, and quite often actually, the reason why the CEO is able to make better decisions than the people in the company is that the CEO knows more about the position of the company, knows about the finances and everything. So the more power you give to the people to make independent decisions, the more you have to also give them information so they can actually make the decisions in the best interest of the company. Then when this direction and ownership are in place, next thing is to make sure that there's also these boundaries. So this minimalist leadership doesn't mean that everybody does whatever they want. There's still boundaries, even though the boundaries are like broader than in a usual situation. An example here would be like Wolt, this Finnish food delivery organization, which was acquired by DoorDash a couple of years ago for a valuation of $8 billion. And what DoorDash was interested about Wolt was that Wolt was very good at going to new markets, new cities and new countries and become profitable there. And when I asked about this from Juhani Mykkänen, one of the founders of Wolt, he said that their strategy when going to new countries was that they took like a long time to recruit a team that would lead a new country. But when they had like recruited the team, then they gave the team very much autonomy to make decisions themselves about how they would enter the market in that place, how they would advertise and so forth. But at the same time, they also made clear what are the things that the local people cannot like tamper with. What are the things that need to stay globally united. So broad boundaries, but still very clear boundaries. That's where you want to head for. And then when the direction, ownership, and boundaries are in place, then you simply have to start trusting the employees. So whenever they make a decision, even though the decision would not be the one that you would be making, you should not go in and like second guess their decision and change the decision, but actually really give them the power to make the decision. At Supercell, there was this one pivotal moment, because usually when they had like various game projects, and then the teams made the decisions about like whether to move forward with the project or whether to kill the project. So they had like during their existence, they have like probably created like more than 100 different games, most of them which have like never seen the global launch. But then at one point there was this situation that the team was willing to like launch a game globally, where all the top management was thinking that, okay, the numbers don't look good enough, we actually shouldn't launch that. And after some discussion, then Ilkka Paananen and other managers decided that actually, from a business point of view, it might be the wrong decision to launch the game. But still, given that they have like very much trying to build this culture of autonomy, culture of like ownership into the company, stepping in and like overriding the decision of the team would kill the culture, and in the long term, that is more important for the company's success. So they allowed the game to be launched, the team to make the decision, and the game became a success, kind of like showing that the team was more right than the top leadership in this situation. And all of this sounds probably very like simple, direction, ownership, boundaries, trust. But why are there then not more minimalist leaders? And I would argue that quite often the key boundary or key obstacle to having like more minimalist leaders is like within the managers themselves, because minimalist leadership is not always psychologically easy for the manager. Because first of all, it's like quite scary for the manager. Suddenly, not all the strings are not in your hand, and because of that, there's many things happening in your company that actually you don't know that they're happening there. There's many initiatives started that you were not like part of, like decided that they should be started. So one leader told me that if the amount of trust you have given doesn't scare you, then you have not trusted enough. And at the same time, another thing is that also it can like be hurtful for your ego, because if you are the CEO, if you are the top manager, usually when you have an idea, everybody around you is like applauding and say that, yay, that's a great idea. But in these kind of companies where people have like more ownership, suddenly people can actually come to say that, no, that's not a good idea. This other guy had this idea, let's follow him. So in some situations, the leaders felt, that in these kind of companies, the people were not listening to them. They were not able, like in the same way, like command people to go to a certain direction, because people might think that, okay, where we want to get is there, and we feel that actually we better get there through another means rather than the thing that you were saying. And reflecting on this, Tuomas Syrjänen says that sometimes he thinks which organization is better, the one that does exactly what the CEO tells, but nothing more, which will be this command and control kind of organization. Or the one organization that does lots of great things, but not always what the CEO wants, and often has like things taking place in the company that were not initiated by the CEO. And in the end, he would always pick the responsible and independent organization, because that's kind of organization that can actually accomplish more, even though not all of that initiative comes from the mind of the CEO, him or herself. So, to kind of like summarize, the task of leadership is in the end quite simple. So if here is your employee, you have to like just make sure that a few things are in place. First, you have to make sure that there's a clear direction, that the employee knows what is expected of them and where they should be going. Then you have to make sure that they're motivated by that direction, that they find it personally motivated. After that, make sure that there's clear boundaries, that the employee knows what they can decide themselves and what they cannot decide themselves. And when direction, motivation, and boundaries are in place, then just make sure that they have the knowledge and the skills to make the right decision to advance the shared goals. And if you're successful in that, then suddenly the employees don't need much from you anymore. And what I'm kind of like saying that this is not about kind of having less leadership in the organization. It's actually having more leadership in the organization, but it's about having the leadership distributed within the organization. So suddenly it's not only you the manager or the managers who are thinking about leading the company, but it's everybody in the company who are together leading themselves, leading together towards this shared direction. And through that, we can accomplish more than just doing it individually, or just doing it by the leader being the one to try to push everybody to the direction. So I will end this presentation with this quote from Robert Greenleaf, who was the originator of the servant leadership style. And he said that the best test is this: do those served grow as persons? So it's a good thing to sometimes be quite self-critical and reflective about your own leadership style, and think about when you come to the room, when you interact with the employees, are the employees shrinking as persons? Are they becoming less engaged, less motivated, less capable of independently making decisions? Or are they actually growing as persons, becoming more engaged, more capable of independently pursuing the shared direction? And if the latter is true, then you are or have become this minimalist leader who is able to accomplish more together because they're having exercising less power by themselves. So less power by the leader can actually lead to more success together. Thank you.